Greetings from afar, everyone. It's good to see, well, all I can see is myself, but I know that you guys are all doing well. And it's weird, I gotta admit, being here in the shul is empty. There's just the Ark and the Torah scroll and me and my camera. It's empty, there's not a soul here. So it's weird, and I must admit, I was quite saddened by the fact that we had to close the shul for the next few weeks. Unfortunately, it's a time that I wanted to at least have a minyan. But it's okay, we understand why. We're trying to avoid the spread of this Kong flu so that it doesn't get to the rest of us. And we're doing everything we can, and it seems to be a necessary fence that we are placing around ourselves so that the spread of this virus does stop. So it's sad that we're not together on Shabbat this week or for the next few weeks, but it provides us with more opportunities for something else. It's something that we can learn from it as well. Of course, it's very ironic that this week's parasha is called Vayakhel, and Kahal means to congregate, right? Moses gets the whole nation of Israel to congregate together to get ready to build the tabernacle. And this week, while we're studying Parashat Vayakhel, look at us, we're all around the place in isolation, isolated from each other. But Baruch Hashem, we have levels of technology that are able to help us to still stay connected to each other. Back then, they never had WhatsApp, they never had Skype, they never had Facebook and all these things, right? You couldn't record videos like this. We'd have to send smoke signals. But today, we can still reach each other and inspire each other. In this week's parasha, God endows Betzalel and Aholiab with the spirit of wisdom, understanding, and knowledge, Chokhmah, Bina, and Da'at, in the fact that they are able to have the skill to perform every type of artisanry. Now, I hope, please God, that He will also give me some of that spirit, not necessarily for artisanry, but more specifically for technology. I'm hoping that this video will be able to make it to you guys. You'll be able to watch it before Shabbat. I already had one go at recording it, and halfway through the thing cut out. So I don't know, I'll try and edit it and see what happens. Maybe next week I can put up a green screen behind me, and we can have, I don't know, jets flying past, make it look cool, and have some writing at the bottom of the screen, etc., etc. You can write in your names for the prayer for the sick, and we'll add them at the bottom of the screen, but I'll charge you for it, ne? Anyway, we'll see what will happen next week. But Baruch Hashem, this week we at least can make a video. I hope it gets out to you guys. I must say it's weird trying to give a vort without you guys sitting here, because I like to interact with you guys and ask you questions, bounce off the ideas from you guys, but it seems that I'm stuck alone today. So while you guys are watching this video, behave yourself, ne? Maybe this can be a type of interaction. I don't know what you guys are doing while you're watching this video, but I can take a few guesses. Like, for example, Nati, stop picking your nose. Okay? And Burton, why are you still in your pajamas? Get dressed, but. Yeah. And Dad, stop eating those Smarties, you've got diabetes. Okay, anyway, so hopefully you guys will be able to watch the video and not just fast forward through it. I'm going to tell a joke shortly. Don't stop watching the video after the joke. All right, that happens a lot. So next week I'll sneak the joke in somewhere close to the end, so you guys have to watch the whole video. But anyway, let's get into it. This week's parasha. It's funny that the prohibitions on Shabbat, with things we're not allowed to do, are derived from this week's parasha. Right, so our sages tell us that if we were all able, the whole of Israel, if they were able to keep one Shabbat perfectly without breaking any of the prohibitions, the Messiah would come that Shabbat, or they'd probably right after Shabbat at Havdalah. And this is one of the drives behind the Shabbos project that we have every year here in South Africa and around the world, is that we want to get every single person in the nation of Israel to be able to keep a Shabbat properly. And if you think about it, this Shabbat and these coming few Shabbosim are the best opportunity we've had in decades not to break a Sabbath, because where are you going to go? Stay in your house. You're quarantined. You're isolated. We've got a chance. This might be it. So please God, Messiah must come very quickly, hopefully even on this Shabbat. For me, it's going to be a very weird Shabbat. Look at me. I'm not even wearing my Sabbath clothes here from the Bima. I'm not wearing my white shirt. I'm wearing colorful kippah. Looks like it's casual Friday here. It's weird. It's going to be the first Shabbat in a very long time where I actually don't work. So I don't know what I'll do. I'll probably line up Rebecca and Judah and the dog, put Bella there as well on a chair, and try and preach to them the Shabbat. We'll see how that goes. Hopefully they don't throw me with tomatoes. Anyway, so we have a very interesting few weeks ahead of us. Right? We don't know how long this virus is going to take to die down, but hopefully it'll just be a few months and it'll die down, and then we'll be able to congregate again. But chances are it'll probably be after Pesach. So it's very weird. It's going to be the first time in many years that we can't have a Pesach service at shul. Of course, we're going to have our Pesach Seders at home, and we're not going to be able to invite as many people as we would like to our Pesach Seders. But, there is a bright side to it as well. For example, remember our sages tell us that every single Pesach, every single person needs to feel as if they personally came out of Egypt. Well, it's difficult for us to get that feeling, right? We don't get to experience the plagues very often. Except, of course, here in South Africa, we've been feeling the plague of darkness quite often with the load shedding. But this year we have a special opportunity. Which plague were we told to stay put? Plague number 10. Everyone had to stay inside their house, or else the angel of death came and swiped you out. So this year we can actually, enact it, and we can feel just like the Israelites felt back then in Egypt, being stuck inside your own home. So look on the bright side of life. In addition to that, here's an insider's tip for your Pesach Seder this year. Remember, there are 15 steps to the Pesach Seder. Remember them? Kadesh, Urichatz, Karpas, Yachatz. Remember all the 15 steps? So step number 2, Urichatz, is the washing of the hands. Insider tip this year, do that step over and over and over and over and over again. We're going to end up having about 45 steps, but keep washing your hands as often as you can. Now, since we won't be seeing each other for the next few weeks, I came across a joke of a husband who doesn't see his wife for a while. Here's the joke. Oh, the uncle goes and gets his end-of-month paycheck. And what does he do with the money? No, he doesn't go home to his wife. He goes to Sun City for the weekend. And what does he do with his money? Wastes it all gambling. Oy vey, he's lost everything just in a weekend. Without even telling his wife he's going away for the weekend. So he figures out Sunday night, it's time to go home. He's got no money left. He has to catch a taxi, get back home. And he doesn't want to encounter his wife. So he decides to go in the wee hours of the morning when she's supposedly still in bed, asleep, right? And he gets to the door, he opens the door, and he tries to tiptoe in. And what does he see? His wife standing in the hallway in her gown and her slippers, with a cat in the one hand and a wooden spoon in the other hand and the grumpy face. Oh, and she lets it rip, and she lets him have it and tells him what a horrible man he is. And eventually she shouts at him and says, how would you like if you didn't see me for a few days? And the uncle had thought about this. He considered this. And he said, geez, that would actually be quite nice. Woo. So the story goes on the next day. The uncle wakes up and, alas, he doesn't see his wife anywhere. Day goes by, he goes to sleep again. The next morning he wakes up again and, alas, he still hasn't seen his wife. The story is told that a week later, he finally was able to see his wife when his eye stopped swelling up. Now he could see his wife at the corner of his eye. Okay. It's quite weird telling a joke with no audience here. I don't know if you guys liked it or not. You'll have to send me an email. Anyway. Alright, so let's talk about this week's parasha, now that I have your attention. And by the way, muting the video from now on out doesn't count as shul attendance. You have to listen to everything. Okay? You guys must be each other's witnesses here. So, if you had a chance to read this week's parasha, you would probably be suffering from a case of deja vu. I don't know if you've noticed, but we've read everything in this week's parasha already in the previous weeks. It's almost as if Moses went to his computer when he was typing out the Torah and said Control-C, Control-V, right? Copy and paste. He decided that, when you write an essay, you have to write a 10,000 word essay. He finished with his concepts, but he didn't have enough words, so he just went and copied the same thing over and over again to get his word count up. But why is it that the Torah repeats all these things that we've already discussed before? Well, I have a suggestion. I guess one of the major differences between the first recording of the things we're doing in the parasha and this recording is the fact that back then, God instructed us to build the tabernacle, whereas in this week's parasha, not to quote Mikey, but we just do it. We finally actually get it done. And I think that is an important distinction to make between the two recollections of the tabernacle and its building. That there's more to it than just having faith and thinking about something in your mind. The action of actually doing what God tells us is something that, it deserves its own reward and its own special mention in the Torah. If you read the whole Bible, for the most part, it's a story of how the Israelites didn't listen to God. So the once in a while that we do listen to God, it's a win for us. So let's record it, right? That's one of the things that it teaches us. Another reason why all the details are recorded for us again is because what was the intent, the original intent of Hashem when He wanted to build the tabernacle? He said, build the tabernacle so that I may dwell among you. Hashem wanted to dwell among us. But what did we do? Did we hold up on our end of the bargain? No. 3,000 of us went and built a golden calf, saying to Hashem that they don't want Him among their community. So when that happened, God could have just wiped us out, and He wanted to, right? Moses went up and pleaded for us, and on his behalf, the whole nation of Israel was saved. And then God decided, okay, that intent is still there. I still want to dwell among you. Here's another opportunity. Build the tabernacle. And that's why in this week's parashah, we use our second chance, our lifeline, our phone a friend, and we actually build the tabernacle to prove to God that it wasn't just lip service, but that we actually do want to hear everything He says and obey. And later on we'll understand why. Because we want Hashem to live among us. It was a chance for us to actually put that faith that we usually think up here and say, I do believe in God, yes, and actually put it into action. We turned the theory that God provided for us in the Torah into actual practical action. Right? And that in itself is kind of like a lesson for us in the fact that God didn't change the instructions of the tabernacle the second time around. It's the exact same instructions as before the golden calf. Before we sinned, God said do this. And after we sinned, when He gave us the second chance, He gave us the exact same commandments. It's the same with the 10 commandments on the tablets, right? The first set Moses brought down and broke it because of the golden calf. The second set had the exact same commandments on it. God doesn't change His Torah when we mess up and sin, which is something that people must understand, right? Many people say that there's a difference between the Old Testament and the New Testament, that the Old Testament is done away with, and now we have this New Testament because the Old Testament law was not good enough. No, that never happens, and it never did happen. The Torah itself is divine and holy and eternal. God's word is eternal. God doesn't change His mind. God doesn't need to change. He's not like us human beings, right? His Torah, His words, His breath is what created this whole creation. So it's not that changes. What changes is the people. Right? So after the 3,000 built the golden calf, God gave us a second chance. And thankfully Moses went and interceded for us. And God gave us a second chance, and He gave us the exact same Torah and said, try again. And that's a wonderful lesson for us that, God allowed us to come and prove our repentance to Him. Because in this week's parashah, all the things that are used to build the tabernacle are donated by us. We get that chance to say to God, we actually do want you to live among us. Here, we'll give of ourselves to build this tabernacle so that we have a part of it with you. Together, we can have you dwelling among us. It's a beautiful lesson. All right, so I want to look at this week's parashah, and I was wondering what topic we shall discuss today. I always struggle when it comes to this parashah, because all the details in this parashah I've already had like 6 other sermons on already this past few weeks. What on earth is left for me to speak about? And I thought, what is the biggest issue facing the world today? And obviously we all know the Kung Flu, right? The coronavirus is what the biggest issue is for us. So I thought, let's talk about that today. What do doctors suggest is the number one act of prevention that you can do not to get the virus, not to spread the virus? Wash your hands. Right? You've got to wash your hands. That's the main thing. So today, I want to talk about hand washing. Right? It's funny that if you've been to the shops lately, you might have noticed that there is a new golden calf in town. It's called hand sanitizer. People will kill to get hold of hand sanitizer. It's the newest version of the golden calf. So today I want to discuss hand washing. Because it's something that we are all pretty much obsessed with at the moment, right? So towards the end of this parashah, we actually see hand washing take place in this very parashah. Right at the end of the book of Exodus, in Vayakhel-Pekudei, Exodus 40 verse 30, around there. It tells us about the copper laver that was built for the tabernacle. And what was the copper laver used for? Washing of hands and feet. In this week's parashah, Aaron and his sons and Moses go and wash their hands and feet. And it actually says they sanctify their hands and their feet for the service of the temple. Right. So if you think you are obsessed at the moment about washing your hands, take a load of these guys. Because listen to this, right? So our rabbis have derived from the Torah itself that the manner in which the priests had to wash their hands and feet is that they had to wash both hands and both feet at exactly the same time. So they derived this from the text itself because, remember, the Torah doesn't have any superfluous words. So in the text where it talks about wash your hands and your feet, it repeats the word et or es twice. It says es yedeichem ve'es raglechem. So why does it repeat the word es twice? Why doesn't it just say and you shall wash hands and feet? Rabbis say because they have to be washed simultaneously at the exact same time. Alright, so this is what the Talmud discusses as to how this was done, right? One rabbi suggested the priest would sit down on their feet, sit down on the floor with their feet and their hands together. The hands would actually be on their feet so that when the water was poured over, it would cover all four of their body's members. Now another rabbi argues, and he counters the argument, by pointing out that previously in the Mishnah we learned that when you do avodah, when you do service in the temple, at all times, that service must be done standing, right? That's one of the reasons why we stand during the Amidah prayer, because that is a reference to the service in the temple. It always had to be done while the priests were standing. They weren't allowed to sit, right? And that's also why when the priests do the priestly blessing, they also have to stand in front of the congregation and do the priestly blessing. So for them to sit and wash their hands and feet together was a no-go. So what does he suggest? He says no, they would actually go and put their hands on their feet, bend down, and then somehow get the water and then wash all four members at the same time. Now, of course, another rabbi comes up and points out, simply they'll lose their balance. They're going to fall over and they're going to make fools of themselves. Instead, the way that they would wash both their hands and their feet simultaneously is by crouching down on their haunches and hanging their hands over their knees, and that way the water would flow onto their hands and down onto their feet at the same time. Okay, so I'm glad we figured it out, right? Because, I don't know if we would have got through this day without figuring out how to wash your hands and feet at the same time. I'm guessing if you ask a modern day rabbi if there's any more halakha I'd like to add to how to wash your hands and feet, he'll probably say you should sing happy birthday twice and make sure you wash for at least 20 seconds. Or at least Hava Nagila or some other cool song. But anyway, there's a whole tractate in the Mishnah that discusses how they were to wash their hands and feet. It's called Tractate Yedayim, which obviously means the hand, right? And in there it tells you how much water is needed, how to perform the washing, what type of vessels qualify for using the water to do the washing, etc., etc. What to do if Pick and Pay runs out of soap, etc. All these things as to how to wash your hands. I don't know if you figured out read some of this stuff about how to make your own hand sanitizer, when they say, okay, well, if you've got normal hand sanitizer, just add alcohol to it and it'll be strong enough. So the suggestion is that you should use your leftover alcohol from Purim to wash your hands now. That's, of course, if you have any left alcohol from Purim. So, now unfortunately today, with all the panic going around that it's easy for us to get infected, right? We seem to treat those around us, because of this scare of the infection, we seem to treat those around us with a little bit of disrespect and as if they are the plague themselves. I don't know if you've noticed this. Just look at some of the, I don't know if you've seen the photos and the videos coming out of the people that went to Macro and bought everything and they're pushing their way into the line and they're fighting each other for sanitizer and all these things, like Black Friday. That's what's going on in the country itself. It's a very, very sad thing that cleanliness is leading us to act like this towards our neighbors. You know that saying, cleanliness is next to godliness? Well, not by the looks of it if you look at what's going on in our malls and shopping centers. We don't even trust anyone unless we have first confirmed that they have washed their hands before they come close to us, right? We're careful not to accept items from someone because they might have left some surface trace of the virus or whatever they're handing over to you. There's even people, I heard about this, people that are spraying envelopes and letters they get in the post with hand sanitizer and letting that dry before they even open the letter. Now, obviously, once they open the letter, whatever's inside is going to be destroyed. But this is how far people are going. Now, there's nothing wrong with having this overly active caution towards, not getting a virus when it spreads so easily, especially if you're elderly or immune compromised, right? But we need to be very careful in how we treat the people around us during this time where we are trying to avoid each other. It doesn't mean that we have to be absolute monsters towards each other. And this got me thinking, right, that there must be a story of this happening in the Bible. And guess what? Can you figure out what the story is? Mark chapter 7 in the Gospels, Yeshua chastises some of the Pharisees who were being monsters and trying to find fault in some of his disciples who didn't wash their hands before eating bread. The story of the unwashed hands. So let me read it to you guys. So we can look at this a bit and see if we can learn something. Since today, we have all become professional germaphobes. Let's see if we can learn something about hand washing and how it can affect us, even though we're living in isolation. So this is from Mark chapter 7. I'm going to read the whole section from verse 1 till 23, so that we know what is going on here, and then we'll discuss it a bit. So here we go. Mark 7, I'm going to read from the Delitzsch Hebrew Gospels. Alright, it starts off by saying, "Now the Pharisees and the men from the scholars who had come from Jerusalem assembled to him." So first of all, why did these guys come from Jerusalem to Yeshua? Well, it's because, remember, at this time the Sanhedrin was trying to squash out Yeshua's teaching. They were scared of him. So the Sanhedrin, the corrupt Sanhedrin by the way, they went and sent these delegates to Yeshua to try and find a fault in him. Right? And this was the whole story right after Yeshua multiplied the bread. This was the 12 baskets of bread that he had extra left over. This miraculous bread that came down from heaven that he gave to the people. And they find fault with this bread, the miraculous bread that represents the manna that came out of heaven. When they saw that some of his disciples eating bread with hands that were impure, that is to say without ritual washing, they rebuked them. For the Pharisees and the Yehudim do not eat until they have done ritual hand washing up to the wrist, in holding to what the elders handed down. And they do not eat what comes from the market without immersing. And there are other things that they have received to observe, such as immersing cups, pitchers, kettles, and even beds. They immersed their beds for sake of purity. How's this, right? After they came back from the shops, they went for a mikveh. That's how scared they were that they picked up impurities. To be honest with you, we're pretty much the same right now in the world, right? The Pharisees and scholars asked him, "Why are your disciples not behaving according to the tradition of the elders? For they are eating bread without ritual hand washing." He answered and he said to them, "Isaiah prophesied well about you hypocrites. As it is written," this is Isaiah 29:13, "This people honors me with their lips, but their heart is distant from me. Their fear of me is empty. They teach commandments of men. For you have abandoned the commandments of God in order to hold to the tradition of sons of men, immersions of pitchers and cups, and many such things that you do." Which is why my house is a nightmare to live in with all the kosher laws we're trying to keep today. Verse 9, he said to them, "How nice that you have nullified the commandment of God in order to observe your tradition. For Moshe said, 'Honor your father and mother, and he who curses his father or mother shall surely die.' But you say, if a man says to his father or mother, 'Korban,' which is interpreted as 'this is a gift to God,' Korban is anything that you would receive as my beneficiary. You do not allow him to do anything further for his father or mother. So you violate the word of God through the tradition that you received, and you do many other things like this." Then he called to all the people and he said to them, "Listen to me, all of you, understand. There is nothing outside of a person that can contaminate him by going into him. Rather, the things coming out from him contaminate the person. Whoever has ears, let him hear." As he returned home from the crowd, his disciples asked him about the matter of the parable. And he said to them, "Are even you lacking in discernment? Do you not comprehend that whatever comes within a person from the outside of him does not contaminate him? For it does not come into his heart, but rather into his stomach, and it goes out to the toilet, which cleanses all that is eaten." He said, "What comes out from the person is what contaminates the person, because from within the person, from his heart, come out evil thoughts, adultery, sexual immoralities, murder, stealing, love of profit, wickedness, fraud, gluttony, evil eye, blasphemy, insolence, and folly. All these evil things are from within the person. They come out and contaminate him." That'll make you think twice next time you pray and you ask Hashem to look at your heart, because apparently this is what your heart looks like. Alright, so this is a story. By the way, I just realized how safe you guys are at home. I'm spitting everywhere as I'm preaching. You guys would be, running for the hills if you were at shul today. All right, so that's the section I want to read, because that, I think, it has a lot in common with what I'm discussing today about this idea of how we treat each other with the hand washing and being sequestrated from each other. So in Messianic circles, you guys know this scripture, right? It's nothing new to you guys, because this is our raison d'être. It is our main defense of our go kosher, our drive that we go to try and say that Christianity is misquoting the Bible. Because, there is this idea that this is always, and in fact, it's always quoted out of context as a excuse to open up the menu, to fill our pork bellies with as much pork as we want. We say, oh, look at this, it's not what goes in that defiles a person, but what comes out. So therefore you can eat whatever you want. Jesus declared all foods clean, right? Except the problem is that verse doesn't appear in the actual Bible. It's an interpretation. And that is not at all what is being discussed in this section, right? Our master did not teach us that is what is going on here, and he did not open the menu so we can have any sort of desire that we want, right? What's going on here is that the ritual hand washing is the issue, because the food they were eating, of course, it tells us it was bread. It's not pork bread or shrimp bread, simple bread. So this raises the question though, right? Because we still wash our hands before eating bread even till today in Judaism. Does Yeshua teach us as his disciples not to wash hands before eating bread? It's an interesting question. Does Yeshua consider this a man-made tradition? Well, the answer is no. Okay, I've saved you the effort. There's a difference between the modern practice of netilas yadayim, the washing of the hands before the bread, and the one that we're actually studying here in Mark chapter 7. There's a major difference between the two, because there's a major time difference, and it was a different setup, because in those days the temple was still standing and purity was a major issue. So it was a different type of hand washing. The hand washing we do today, by the way, only came in as an institution way after Yeshua. What they were doing over here, these specific guys that the Sanhedrin sent, was a certain extra, beyond the letter of the law level of purity, which, by the way, was not even instituted yet by Hillel and Shammai. It was something that was still being argued, and at a later stage they realized they're going to change it and do something else about it. So there are two different things. Okay, so first off I want to point out that in the text it points out that some of Yeshua's disciples ate this bread without washing hands. Well, if it says some of them did it, it means that Yeshua himself probably washed his hands, like his mother raised him to. Right? And mind you, even the 12 disciples, the 12 apostles, they themselves probably washed their hands. Remember, Yeshua had this massive crowd of people following him on his journeys. And very often, Yeshua went to the lost sheep of the house of Israel. These are the sinners, right? The tax collectors and all these things. These guys decided to change their life and become religious. They might not have yet learned about the minutiae of ritual purity, which, by the way, was not even law yet. It was still being discussed in this time. Maybe it was one of them or a few of them that didn't wash their hands. But Yeshua has to defend them. So to understand this whole argument of what's going on, we need to understand the context. Otherwise you will be conned by the text. Okay, so here is the context, right? We've been studying the tabernacle quite a bit lately in these last few weeks. And we've been discussing what life would be like if the tabernacle was still standing. If the temple was still standing, life would be completely different, right? There would be so many more things in the Torah that actually apply to us. I wonder often, when we had the World Cup here in South Africa, if you couldn't make it to the stadium, you used to gather in these fan parks. And in the fan parks, we used to watch the matches together, right? I wonder if it'll be like that in the Messianic era. Those that are still stuck here in South Africa, if they'll get together in fan parks to watch the morning sacrifices in the temple when Yeshua's there and listen to his teaching. It'll be an interesting time, right? But if the temple was still standing today, we would understand ritual impurity and purity so much more, because it would be a part of our daily life. Every single meal that we eat, we would have to worry about whether we were ritually pure or not. But because today we don't have a temple, we don't have a tabernacle, so much of the Torah doesn't apply today, especially the ritual purity laws, the laws of Lada'at, the laws of a leper, these things don't apply today. So we have a very small understanding of what life is actually like in a time where ritual purity and impurity does take place. Right? So let's get into this, let's analyze it, and let's see. Here's a question. Is it a biblical commandment to wash your hands before eating, yes or no? I can hear through the screen some of you are answering maybe. Yes, once again, the answer is yes and no. Okay, the answer is yes and no. No, you don't need to wash your hands before you have a Kit Kat. I would like a taste of that. But if you were eating food, specifically, that was brought to the temple as an offering, that food becomes sacrosanct, it becomes holy because it touched the altar, then you would have to be in a state of ritual purity in order to eat that food. Today we have no idea about this because we don't have a temple. But let's go back to Yeshua's time when the temple was still standing and when this argument was raised. So for example, if you were to bring a peace offering to the temple, right, and you were to sacrifice this lamb and you would take the meat home with you and eat it with your family, that offering, that meat now carried with it a sanctity of holiness that you could only partake of if you yourself were ritually pure. And that is why you would have to mikvah before you go into the temple to actually go and do a sacrifice. You yourself have to be ritually pure to be able to partake of the sacrifice. For example, the Pesach lamb. Pesach lamb, you have to be ritually pure to be able to eat of the Pesach lamb. So every time you want to eat some of the food that made it to the altar, you have to be found ritually fit. In fact, you'd have to go and Pesach clean your house every time before this happens. And by the way, for ladies that are already started with your Pesach cleaning, good luck, you can do it. Alright, it's the same with wheat, right? When we give our tithes, our teruma, we also give wheat to the priests, and the priests can't eat that wheat until they themselves are in a ritually pure state. They are not allowed to give of those tithes and those portions that are particularly for them to a normal Israelite because it's set apart for the priests. So there's another ritual status that's needed in order to eat that food. Okay, so now that we are not living in Jerusalem, it's difficult for us to understand, right? But we are just as overly cautious today because of this whole virus about what we eat, right? Just to be safe, we are careful and we wash our hands intensely before we eat, right? And I think this is exactly what's going on in the story in Mark chapter 7. That they are holding this higher level of ritual purity and they're trying to take this level of purity and put it onto Yeshua's disciples, right? Because there were certain Pharisees who were keeping this extra stringent level, and you can almost compare it. Here's an example, right? Say now you're going to the shops, you and your family, right? You quickly go to the shops, you decide to brave it, and you've sprayed yourself everywhere, right? And you're out in your hazmat suits. No, you just go normally like we are now. And you see other people in the shopping center walking around with masks and gloves and big yellow suits. They're the ones in the hazmat suits. If someone like that comes up to you and your family and starts chastising you for not wearing a mask, even though it's 2 weeks after Purim, right? These people are still wearing masks in the malls. If that person comes to you and gives you grief because you are not wearing a mask, how would you feel? First of all, is it required for us to wear masks by the government? No, not yet, right? It's not at that stage. The virus is not an airborne one yet, right? So hopefully it won't become one. But it's not such a danger. It's not required for us to wear a mask. Is it a good idea? Sure, of course it's a good idea. But that doesn't mean that because you are wearing a mask, and you can afford a mask, by the way, because these things are at exorbitant prices, it doesn't mean that you can now go to others and force them to keep your extra stringency, your extra fence that you've put around not getting infected. And that is exactly what's happening in this week's parasha. In this portion of Mark chapter 7, where they're coming and they're actually pointing out Yeshua's disciples and saying, hey, why aren't they washing their hands before eating bread? Because it wasn't a requirement yet. They were trying to find something to pin him down on. Okay? So, Yeshua obviously goes and he defends his disciples. I mean, you would defend your family if someone came up to you in the mall like that and tried to attack you, right? Yeshua decides to defend his disciples as well, right? And what does Yeshua say? He says, because you try and keep this extra commandment of men, the problem is you break the commandment of God himself. So here's the question. What commandment is it that they broke? Well, for starters, I can suggest that, it might be the sin of publicly humiliating someone. Right? Leviticus chapter 19:17 says, "You may surely reprove your neighbor, but you shall not incur sin because of him." Don't embarrass someone when you reprove them. Right? The Talmud actually rephrases that commandment as follows. It says, "He who publicly humiliates someone, it is as if he has committed murder." Right? And they say that's why when you embarrass someone, their cheeks blush, because it brings the blood to the surface. It's as if you have spilled blood when you embarrass someone. Similarly, Yeshua teaches the same thing in Matthew chapter 5, verse 21 to 22. Let me read it to you guys quickly. He says, "Have you not heard that it was said to the first ones, 'You shall not murder, and whoever murders will be liable to the court of law'? Yet I say to you that whoever is enraged against his brother baselessly is liable to a court of law. And whoever says to his brother, 'Reka,' is liable to the Sanhedrin. And whoever calls him a reprobate is made liable to the fire of Gehenna. Therefore, if you are offering your sacrifice at the altar and remember that your brother has a dispute with you, leave your sacrifice there in front of the altar and go and atone before the face of your brother. Then afterwards come and offer your sacrifice." Right? So Yeshua is, he's teaching us that if you want to go beyond the letter of the law, then go in the right direction. These extra mitzvot that Yeshua gives us in the New Testament are leading us to keeping the Torah. Whereas what's happening in the story of Mark chapter 7 is these laws that they're extra laws and rabbinical laws that they're bringing in, these specific ones are actually taking them away from the Torah. Right? And that's why, thank goodness, Baruch Hashem, you'll see later on in the Talmud and in Talmudic history, they fix these laws and they start following, very interestingly, the rulings of Yeshua. It's in there's many occasions where the Talmud actually goes and reverts back to something which Yeshua already ruled way before they came to that decision. And this is another example of it. I'm going to give you one shortly as well. Alright, so Yeshua goes on to give them some specific examples of how they put traditions of men above the commandments of God. He quotes the examples of, "Honor your father and mother, and he who curses his father and mother must die." And he explains to these Pharisees, these specific Pharisees by the way, how they go and implement this. He gives them another example of where he caught them out doing this. He says, this is in Mark chapter 7 verse 11, he says, "But you say, if someone says to his father or mother, 'I have promised as korban,'" we give to God, "as korban what I might have used to help you,' then you no longer let him do anything for his mother or father. Thus, with tradition, you nullify the word of God. And you do other things like this as well." Okay, so this is pretty confusing, right? What's the whole point of this korban something, and how does that affect your parents? Well, let me break it down to you. When you declare something as korban, what you're doing is you're dedicating that thing to the temple. It is set apart for the temple. For example, let's say I had 2 bars of gold, right? Please God. Let's say I own 2 bars of gold. And I go and say that I'm dedicating these bars of gold as korban when I die. What's going to happen is when I die, my family doesn't inherit those 2 bars of gold. Instead, I've made it korban, set apart as an offering to the temple. So my wife and my kids will not be able to inherit that because I've set it aside, korban, holy, set apart, sanctified, only for the temple. They don't get to partake of those 2 bars of gold. They don't get any benefit from it. It's quite a rude thing, right? And this actually happens in the day of Yeshua. People were doing this. They were invoking korban to the point of spitefulness. So for example, a guy, he was angry at his wife. So he didn't want his wife to get another penny out of him. So what did he do? He took all his possessions and he made it korban when he died. So when he died, his wife didn't get another penny out of him. It all went to the temple. But these things actually happened in the days of Yeshua. Let me tell you a story of a guy who did this to his very own father. This is from the Mishnah. Check that, Nedarim 5 verse 6. It says, "It happened to one guy in Bet Horon who took a vow that his father was forbidden to benefit from him. So this guy did this to his own dad. Now he, the son, was giving his own son in marriage. And he felt a bit guilty. He wanted his dad to come to the wedding. But the problem was he had a vow already made that his dad will get absolutely no benefit from him. But if his dad comes to the wedding, of course he's going to be benefited. He's going to eat of the food that he paid for. He's going to enjoy the hall that he hired for the wedding. So he's got a problem. So this man who was giving his son in marriage went to his neighbor and said, "The courtyard and the banquet, the feast, I give to you as a gift. But they are yours only so that my father may come and feast with us at the banquet." So this guy, he specifically forbidden from his father in the past, but now he regretted it because, he thought, maybe I should have my dad come to see my own son, to see his grandson finally getting married, right? So the neighbor said to him, the neighbor saw what was going on here. The neighbor said to him, "If you now give these things to me and they are mine, I dedicate them to heaven." Korban. The son responded, "What? I did not give you my property to dedicate it to heaven." And the neighbor responded, "Well, you gave me yours so that you and your father might eat and drink together and become reconciled to one another. But the sin of breaking your previous vow against your father is now going to devolve upon my head and not yours." So the neighbor realized that this guy is breaking his own vow to God by doing this, and he's going to put that sin on the neighbor. So the neighbor said, "Nope, I'm dedicating this to God as well, so even you can't use it." This actually happened in the days of Yeshua. So this is what Yeshua is teaching about in Mark chapter 7. Right? He's saying you guys make silly vows and you end up breaking the Torah's laws in the first place. For example, honor your father and your mother. Right? Now I'm glad to report to you that a generation later after Yeshua, a rabbi did come along and he saw all these vows, because the Talmud is full of these vows, by the way. There's lots of formulations of the different vows you can use to do this against your own parents. A rabbi came along and saw that what's happening is that these vows are causing people to break the Torah by keeping a man-made tradition, and Rabbi Eliezer stopped it. This is from Nedarim 9 verse 1. It says, "But the sages admit to Rabbi Eliezer that in a matter concerning himself and his father and his mother, one may release a vow because of the mitzvah to honor your father and mother." So because the Torah has got the commandment to honor your father and mother, now you can be released of making a stupid vow like that. Like saying, "Oh, I'm not going to let my dad enjoy my son's benefits from his wedding." Right. Anyway, so Yeshua goes on to explain that it is not what goes into the mouth that defiles a person, but it is what comes out of the heart that defiles you. Things like evil thoughts, murders, adultery, fornication, theft, false witness, and slander. And I think this is a very appropriate teaching for us today in our current situation, where you see all these people doing the panic shopping and all these things that's going around, right? In the various isolations that we are in, we aren't really presented with as many opportunities to live out the Torah, to show love to our neighbors, because we can hardly even see our neighbors, right? We don't have as much opportunities to perform mitzvot, right? Because we have little interaction. But the place where we can now focus, we're going to take advantage of this case that we're supposed to be sequestrated. We can focus on changing our ways, not in the public eye, but in the hidden chambers, those darkest spots hidden inside your heart. We have a valuable opportunity now to see that within our own lives. The place where we inconspicuously scheme up our evil thoughts and our slander against others is from the deepest recesses of our own mind and heart. That is what we can work on during this time, on cleansing, right? Focus is more than just washing your hands. It's washing your soul, your thoughts, your mind, and your actions, right? And it's these type of sins, the ones that aren't visible to the naked eye, that are super contagious, right? Like the coronavirus. In fact, it's even more contagious than the virus, because no touch is even involved in spreading this, right? All it takes for these dark arts that we think up in our hearts, all that it takes for them to spread is an ear that is willing to hear you gossip about someone else, or an eye that is not willing to look away when you point the finger at others for what they are doing and blaming others and looking at their mistakes. These things are heavily, heavily contagious. then they are things that actually need masks. So as we continue in this time of isolation, to wash our hands every chance we get, as long as we can, 20 seconds at least, right? As we do this, use those 20 seconds not just to sing happy birthday, make it meaningful. Use it as a time of introspection, to look at your own heart and think, well, sure, my hands are clean, but how is my mind? What am I thinking about today? What have I done wrong since the last time I washed my hands? 2 minutes ago, right? Have you changed your way of how you think and how you react to those around you? Have you done something better in life since that last time that you washed your hands? Right? Let's follow our Master's directive where he tells us to not only clean the outside of the cup, but to clean the inside of the cup first, so that the outside will also become clean. I wish you guys all a Shabbat Shalom, a good Shabbos. And as we end off the book of Exodus, I say to you, Chazak, Chazak, Vanis Chazek. Be strong, and let us be strengthened. May Hashem protect and deliver us from all trouble and distress, all infection and illness, and send blessing and success to all the work of our hands, together with all Israel, our brethren. And let us say, Amen.